Check engine light on? Take the guesswork out of your check engine light with O'Reilly Veriscan. It's free. Ask for O'Reilly Veriscan today.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
And this is Morning Report. The White House is in damage control following yesterday's bombshell that senior Trump administration officials discussed plans to bomb Yemen in a commercial group messaging app. And not only that, they accidentally invited a journalist to join the chat group. President Donald Trump is standing by his national security advisor Mike Waltz, saying it was a, quote, glitch that the reporter was added to the group chat. The journalist, editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, Jeffrey Goldberg, made the jaw-dropping revelation in an article yesterday entitled, quote, "The Trump administration accidentally texted me its war plans," unquote. Here he is describing the moment he realised the group chat may have been legitimate.
He was texting war plans. He was texting attack plans. When targets were going to be targeted, how they were going to be targeted, who was at the targets, when the next sequence of attacks were happening. I didn't publish this, and I continue not to publish it because it felt like it was too confidential, too technical, and I worry, honestly, that sharing that kind of information in public could endanger American military personnel. But no, they were plans for the attack. I made the decision that the technical aspects of this, including what kinds of weapons packages, the attack sequencing, and so on, that's not necessarily in the public interest. What's in the public interest is that they were running a war plan on a messaging app and didn't even know who was invited into the conversation. I mean, it's an obvious, ridiculous security breach.
Well, lawmakers have been grilling intelligence chiefs in the Senate this morning over how such an error was able to occur. Director of the CIA, John Ratcliffe, was questioned by Democratic Senator Michael Bennet just how the journalist became included in the thread.
Did he create a hoax that allowed him to become part of this signal thread? Please answer the question. You don't insult the intelligence of the American people. Did he invite himself to the signal thread?
I don't know how he was invited, but clearly he was added.
Clearly it was. Finish your sentence, please.
Clearly he was added to the signal group. Your question is...
You don't know that the president's national security advisor invited him to join the signal thread? Everybody in America knows that. Does the CIA director not know that?
I've seen conflicting reports about who added the reporter to the signal messaging group.
You think that it's perfectly appropriate that there was a reporter added, especially one that the Secretary of Defense says is deceitful, highly discredited, a so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes over and over again? Is your testimony that it was appropriate that he was added to this signal thread?
No, of course not. And
why did you not call?
Hold on, Senator. You're mischaracterizing my testimony.
Good. You answered the question. Let me ask you: when he was added to the thread, you're the CIA director. Why didn't you call out that he was present on the signal thread?
I don't know if you use signal messaging app.
I do. Not for classified information, not for targeting,
well, neither
not
do I,
for anything
Senator.
remote.
Neither do I, Senator.
Well, that's what your testimony is today.
Well, joining us for more on this is Washington, D.C. correspondent Simon Marks. Good morning, Simon. This is extraordinary.
Morning, Corin.
The damage that is being done here to the reputation of the U.S. security intelligence apparatus, or whatever you want to call it, it's extraordinary.
Yes, absolutely. And there are questions arising from that, of course, for New Zealand, because remember that New Zealand is a Five Eyes partner in the intelligence gathering group that brings together, the intelligence sharing group that brings the United States together with New Zealand, with Australia, with Canada and the UK. And there have to be questions now about how safe any intelligence that New Zealand or any of those other governments provides to the United States. How secure is that, given the extent to which the these officials, 18 of them, including, I think, 19 if you include Mike Waltz, the national security advisor, given how fast and loose they have played with protocols for discussing something as sensitive as an upcoming set of military strikes on Houthi rebels disrupting shipping in the Red Sea. Those hearings today were brutal for the CIA Director John Ratcliffe and also for Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence. Take a listen to this exchange between Tulsi Gabbard and Senator Mark Warner, the top Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee.
There was no classified material that was shared in that.
So then if there was no classified material, share it with the committee. You can't have it both ways. These are important jobs. This is our national security. Bobbing and weaving and trying to, filibuster your answer.
So that was at the beginning of the hearing. It took him 3 bites of the cherry to get her to concede that she was in the group chat to begin with. Then, as you heard her say there, she claimed that there was no classified information shared in the chat. By the time the 2.5-hour hearing was over, she and the CIA director were conceding that there had been a talk within the chat about the sequencing of the attack, the targets, the weapons that were going to be used. But it appeared to be the CIA director's contention that when the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, the former Fox News anchor, put that information into the chat, he had the power and the authority to decide at that very moment that he was declassifying that information. None of this is going to stand up to very much scrutiny.
Well, that's right. And I hadn't heard that part there because I was beginning to think they were gaslighting us. I mean, how could it have possibly been discussing war plans an hour before? I mean, the journalist knew in advance of the war plans that they weren't classified.
Well, that's the extraordinary thing, right? Jeffrey Goldberg presumed when all this began that he was being played possibly by foreign intelligence agencies, possibly by some kind of a trap. And he didn't actually believe that he was in a signal group chat with, among others, the Secretary of State, the CIA Director, the National Security Advisor, the Director of National Intelligence, and the Vice President J.D. Vance, who was making it clear that he had some issues with President Trump's decision to greenlight this attack on the Houthi rebels. So Goldberg plays this whole thing out. He continues lurking in the room, obviously not interacting, but simply soaking up what he's reading. And it was only when he sat in a supermarket parking lot at the time that he had learnt in the group chat that the attack on the Houthi rebels was going to begin 10 days ago, and he started scanning his social media apps to see if anybody was reporting explosions in Sana'a, the capital of Yemen, and lo and behold, they were. And it was only at that point that the penny dropped and he realised he had actually been included to a real conversation about top-secret intelligence taking place over a commercially available app that any foreign government, the Russians, the Chinese, any adversary of the United States could be tapping.
Incredible. Thank you very much for that. Washington, D.C. correspondent Simon Marks there with the latest on that story.